So I may have decided to sew a full Card Captor Sakura cosplay in 1 month. But hey, what's a magical girl without a little chaos, right? With a handful of fabric, a sprinkle of sewing magic, and way too much optimism, I'm turning my childhood nostalgia into reality. Sakura's iconic pink dress. Let's see if I can pull it off. Growing up, there were 2 animes that I was really fond of: Yu-Gi-Oh! And Card Captor Sakura. I've been feeling the urge to make something of those early magical memories, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is out. I do not have the capability of doing those gravity-defying wigs without making them look unrealistic. But Card Captor Sakura, that's perfect. She has so many whimsical dresses, half magical girl, half fashion dream. Some of them are even cute enough to wear every day. Honestly, I kind of want to make all of them and then just kind of add them to my wardrobe. But to start off, I think it's only right to make her most iconic outfit, the adorable pink magical girl dress, complete with the wand and the wings. And what better time to start than 1 month before the convention I plan to wear it to. Perfectly reasonable timing, right? So let's begin by figuring out all the pieces I'll need. The main parts are a pink overall dress, a white blouse, and that big pink beret. Then there's the gloves, the thigh-high socks, a poofy underskirt for volume, and shoes. And so many boros. Of course, the wand and fluffy wings, too. That's a lot to do in a month. Am I a little crazy? Probably. But let's get sewing anyway. I'll start with my bodice. If you watched my last video, you'll know that my bodice block turned out to be about 3 inches too short in the front and 3.5 inches too short in the back. Unfortunately, this project happened before that realization, so I only added 3 inches to all the blouse pieces. Boo! The bodice block that I had made for the Edwardian blouse, originally I had made to make an entirely separate pattern. This was just the bodice block, and so it doesn't have any closures on it. It is just the base blouse. There's nothing more to it. It's just that. The problem is that the front of the bodice block has a curved edge. You can see right there. It is a curved edge, which isn't the end of the world. It just means that it can't be cut on the fold. And why does that matter? Because the Card Captor Sakura shirt that I am trying to recreate is clearly not closed in the front. It doesn't have any seams in the front, nothing like that. Now I can straighten out that part of the bodice. I can just make it flatter. I would then have to add a button placket to the back, which is fine. That's originally what I was planning on doing, but the blouse that she wears has a collar on the front, and the collar has a split front. So if the back has the closure, the back would also have to have a closure on the collar. And I don't know how that would work. Hold on, where's my phone? I'm gonna look up the picture again. Okay, that's actually not so bad. I was thinking it was like a down collar, which splits in the front, but it's actually an up collar, so I can actually close that in the back. Not really sure how I'm gonna do that collar, but at least now I know I can put the button placard on the back and just have it close in the back. It'd be a pain to put on because buttons in the back aren't exactly the easiest thing to put on myself, but I'll have to figure out how to make it work. I'm currently experimenting with camera angles to get the best shot with my current setup, and let me tell you, this one was not it. But alas, it's the only footage I have of cutting out the front and back pieces. So here we are. I straightened out the front and added a button placket to the back. This definitely isn't a tutorial, guys. I have no idea what I'm doing. and it shows. As for the sleeves, I forever hate making sleeves, but since these are puff sleeves, I get to cheat a little. I just grabbed my favorite sleeve pattern from my stash, traced it onto patterning paper, and called it a day. Maybe someday I'll actually organize and save these pieces properly, but it is not this day. My fears have come to reality. I was really hoping to use this fabric for the bodice, mainly because it's cotton, so it would be very light. The only problem with it is it's kind of cheap looking, but a little girl was supposed to be wearing it, so I wasn't too upset about that. But I don't have enough for the sleeves. So I'm just going to use it as a mock-up, which is what I should have done in the first place, just to see how it fits. And then I do have other white fabrics. They're a bit thicker, which makes them look more expensive, but they also don't breathe. So I have options. I have one that's a stretchy fabric that doesn't look as expensive, but is very light. So it would probably breathe a little bit better. Still polyester, so it still wouldn't breathe as good as the cotton would, but it's a little bit more flowy. Or I have a different white fabric that I had bought for a project that I've given up on because it wasn't turning out like it was supposed to, which is much stiffer, and please don't mess that up. Come here. Which is much stiffer, but like not so much that I couldn't use it as a shirt fabric. It's just that it won't breathe and it looks a little bit more expensive. So Chamoyo probably would have bought the more expensive fabric. She probably would have got cotton sateen or something of that nature. But that's not what I got. So for now, I'm just gonna worry about sewing together the mock-up, hoping that I can put it on, because I cut it out as though it was going to be my actual piece. But when you're doing a mock-up, you're really supposed to do a front closure no matter where your closure is going to be on the pattern, especially if it's going to be a back closure, because you can't really line it up that well in the back. So I'm gonna hope and see if I can't get it to work at least. After trying on the mock-up off camera and doing a few small armhole adjustments, I went ahead and cut everything out of my new fabric. I have no idea what this fabric actually is, only that it's polyester and a little stretchy. It was just in my stash from a previous project that I wound up dropping. When cutting the sleeves, I added a few extra inches to the bottom hem. Later, I'll flip that up to make a ruffled edge. I actually learned that trick from watching someone make bloomers once. Then I sewed everything together using French seams. Is that necessary? Probably not. But this fabric frays and I didn't feel like trying any other finishing techniques. My lighting is terrible because I've got my photo light beside me, but I'm too lazy to fix it. So we're just gonna deal with it. So today's been hard, not because of actual work, but because I struggled with motivation today. But I was able to at least get some stuff done. So I was able to sew all of the pieces together. So I have now my sleeves are sewn into tubes and my bodice over there is sewn together except for the back. I have not sewn the sleeves onto the bodice because I want to do the hem of the sleeves first, and also I need to iron it. But I hate ironing like with a passion. Don't know why. It's a relatively easy process. I just don't like doing it. I just can't do it right now. I got as far as I could for the moment. and I would like to stay up late and work on more of the shirt because I really want to finish the shirt pretty quickly so that once the fabric gets here for the dress, I can just work on the dress real fast, and also the tulle skirt. And there's a lot going on, and I'm pretty sure that if I want to enter this into a cosplay contest, that I have to get it done by mid-August, and it's currently the end of July. So I have like 2 weeks to get it done, and I don't know how that's going. Today was a hard day, but I'm actually really proud of myself that I was able to get work done despite motivational issues, because more often than not, the reasons that my projects fail is because I lose the motivation to work on them, and then I put them off, and then I hate them, and it's a whole cycle. Also, what the heck is happening with my hair? I did not notice how bad it was until just now. Don't know what's going on there. But anyway, I'm really proud of myself for actually getting most of the sewing done, whatever I could of the sewing done today. I would like to stay up later, but I have work tomorrow, and I just can't stay up late when I have to go to work. So I really wish I had the energy of some of those YouTubers who stay up until like 3 o'clock to finish their projects, but I just can't. Look at me, actually managing to iron that same night. Is this what we call growth? Then it's back to the sewing machine to work on the sleeves. After sewing them in the round, I flipped up a small section, about half of the extra length I added earlier, and stitched it down, leaving a small gap near the seam. That encased the raw edges so they won't fray. Then one more row of stitching slightly lower down creates the perfect casing for my elastic. I cut the elastic just a little smaller than my arm to account for the inevitable stretch that happens once it's inside the sleeve. Threaded it through, sewed it into a loop, and closed up that little gap. That means no gathering needed at the sleeve base. Magical efficiency. But of course, I still had to gather the top of the sleeve to fit the shoulder. Then it's back to the iron again, this time to press my button placket in place using the original pattern I stole it from to make sure I get the measurements right. Then I tacked it down with stitches as close to the folded edge as possible, and turned up a rolled hem, hoping it'd make it easier to feed through the machine. I swear, rolled hems are my nemesis. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. Next, the collar. I folded a strip of fabric in half after sewing both sides of the collar together and flipping it right side out. I added a gathering stitch at the bottom to ruffle it and attach it to the blouse neckline. Honestly, it's probably the least clean seam in the whole shirt, but if I tried to fix it, it'd get way too bulky. I am so close to finishing the bodice, but I've run into a bit of an issue, which is something I was afraid would happen this whole time, but I was looking at how to do the closure, which the way it's supposed to work, because I have a button placard in here, which I am so sorry about the lighting situation. This white does not want to show up on the camera. It's just getting washed out horribly. There's a button placard on the back of the shirt, which, based on the original pattern, I had measured it out, and I thought that it would be an overlap and it would work just fine. But even after adding in the seam allowances, it's too tight. Specifically around the neck, I think it's so tight that it's uncomfortable, and I'm not even sure it'll really close at like the mid-back or where the bust line is. Now I have to figure out how to close the back of the shirt in such a way that it won't be uncomfortable, but that it also won't be like gaping. I have buttons. I just bought buttons that I can use, and the original plan was to do buttons and then buttonholes, and put those in the back, but my fear is that it will be too tight and therefore uncomfortable. The other option for a back closure is like a zipper, but I've already finished the back edge and it would take a lot of work for me to undo the back edge because I have to undo the hem as well as the collar and then just undo the back in general. The zipper's probably out, and then the other options would be pretty much hooks and eyes, which would definitely leave gaping. I've had that issue before. Or a button and loop situation, which I can do a button and loop situation, but I'd probably want to do some sort of modesty panel because I just don't think the button and loop situation would keep the shirt fully closed. And then after all that, I decided I didn't want to figure out another closure. So buttonholes it is. Alright, so while I was at work today, I added the buttons off camera. I'm sorry, but I was at work. I can't film at work. So I added the buttons and I went ahead and I tried on the shirt as it is right now. And I'm shocked that it fits. I mean, I thought for sure it was gonna be too small because every single time I tried it on without having the closure, I felt like I was tugging it real tight just to even get the edges to touch. And yet I am wearing the shirt right now. It is closed fully in the back except for I need to add a snap at the top because I made the button too low, but that's a minor fix. But it's wearable. There's just a couple of things that I need to add on to make it Card Captor Sakura. First of all, the collar is supposed to stick up, but because of the way I did the neckline, it wants to stick down. So I need to probably sew a line in the seam just to tack down that seam so that the collar will actually stick up. There will be a red bow that goes on the bodice. I haven't decided yet if I want to add that on permanently or if I want it to just be something I can safety pin in so that I can wear this shirt without having to wear something red with it, because this outfit probably will be something I wear outside of cosplay. And then the other thing that I need is the bows in the front, on the front of the sleeves, because she does have some pretty big bows right there on the sleeve. But other than that, the bodice is done. And so I can move on to the rest of them. I finally got my lace in the mail so I can actually do the tulle skirt. And hopefully I get those all done this weekend because my fabric for the overdress is coming on Monday. And then I will have everything done and ready so that I can work on the overdress on Monday when the fabric comes in. Also, I would like to make a complaint. I thought that I was going to have to figure out how to button the whole of this shirt by myself every single time I wore it, but turns out, blah. I only need the top two buttons undone to be able to pull it off and put it back on. This is a good thing, but I'm mad because I didn't realize that was the case when I was trying it on, and I struggled for like 15 minutes trying to put it on until I finally thought, I'll just try buttoning it before putting it on, and it worked so easily. I added a tacking seam to the bottom of the collar, though it didn't help much. How do people get these ruffles to stand up properly? I just can't figure it out. Now for the bows. I cut a couple of rectangles. I couldn't find my straight edge rulers, so I just grabbed a handy dandy book and guessed at the size I'd need. Resourceful, right? Except that I damaged the book, so I wouldn't do that if I were you. Then I folded the strips right sides together and sewed along the edges. You're supposed to leave the center open to turn it right side out, but I totally forgot. That's okay. I opened it up again off camera. No one will ever know. I pressed the corners nice and crisp, which would be easier if I had the right tool, but my craft room is a disaster and I cannot find anything. Then I added a gathering stitch to the center of the fat rectangle. Maybe an unnecessary step, but I wasn't taking chances. I wrapped the longer strip around and tied a little knot in the back, then secured it with some hand stitches before adding it to the sleeve. Annoyingly, I had to redo that part several times because I kept putting it in the wrong place. And finally, I added a little snap to the top of the collar. Alright, shirt's mostly done. I just need to put the red bow on. I have decided that the red bow will go onto the collar because it still won't stay up no matter what I do. So if I put the red bow in, then I can tack down the collar with the red bow. But I'm gonna wait until I get the dress fabric so I can match the red bow to the dress fabric. And so for now, that shirt is done, and it still doesn't want to show through. I'm watching Judge Judy, sorry. And I can move on to the skirt and the... Now it's time to work on the skirt. And for some reason, this part required a lot of overthinking on my part. Probably just procrastination, if I'm being honest. So please bear with me as I ramble through my thought process. We have to start with the tulle petticoat, which is going to be all of the actual, hopefully, structure of the skirt. I might have to do a hoop skirt, but I'm hoping not to. So, starting with the tulle skirt, luckily, a while ago, I bought in bulk tulle white fabric. I don't actually remember why. I hardly ever used it. I don't know if this is going to be a strong enough tulle because I don't remember what strength tulle it is. The tutorial that I'm using says medium weight tulle. This one seems a little bit lightweight for that, so we'll see if it's enough. Again, if it's not enough, I'll just put a hoop skirt underneath it. But for now, starting with making a really poofy tulle skirt. I took the top piece of tulle out of the box and found that there is a label on this tulle. Still doesn't tell me what strength tulle it is. Just says craft and party and tulle. But it does say that it's 54 inches by 40 yards of tulle. So the person that I was watching made 6 layers of skirt. There was 6 rectangles that was 10 centimeters by 4 meters, and then there was 6 rectangles that was 30 centimeters by 4 meters. I don't use centimeters. I'm American and we're weird and we use inches. So now I have to convert 30 centimeters to inches. Because the thing I'm going to use to cut out my tulle is actually also in inches. So Siri, convert 30 centimeters to inches. 11.81 inches. That is way too short. I might make it longer than that because 11 inches on me, I'm tall. 11 inches, well 12 inches technically. 12 inches on me, I am very tall. I don't know that 12 inches is going to be enough for me. And while it's supposed to be really poofy, so it's gonna be pretty long anyway, I think I will make it maybe like 15 inches. But I don't really want my butt showing. So I'm going to do a couple of measurements. The other thing is, she said that her waist is 1.5 meters. Which definitely probably is smaller than my waist, so I might make these strips a little bit longer than that because she had the largest layer was 8 meters gathered down to 4 meters, and then that layer was gathered down to 2 meters, and then that layer was gathered down to 1.5 meters, which was twice her waist size, and then she put elastic in that was the size of her waist, or a little smaller so that it would actually stay up. So I guess her waist is 0.75 meters, which is like 30 inches. And I am not that small, so I might make my layers a little bit longer than that. if only because I have the ability to do so since my tool is 40 yards long per bolt. So we shall see how that works. All right, so I'm doing the math and I'm saying it out loud because I don't currently have anywhere to write it down, so at least I'll have some record of it. The math is that I should sit down because this is going to take a while. I did a whole bunch of math in my head several times over, which basically just meant adjusting the proportions to match my waist, so we'll skip that part. Yeah, so I need 440 inch long by 12 inch wide, 6 of those. 12 inch by, let's actually do 13 yards just so I have some extra that I can cut off if I need to. 6 of them. And then I'll probably do 6 4-inch by 6.5 yards of fabric for the tulle. And then I'll need one more layer, which would be the lining layer, and the waistband, which would be, the lining layer I think is just 15 inches by however many inches, probably the 220, so that's 6.5 yards. So probably 15 inches by 6.5 yards for the lining. I don't need that to be super gathered. I don't mind it being super gathered because it'll give a little bit of extra poof to the tulle layers, but not a lot. It could just create too much bulk, so I probably won't do the bigger end of that one. And then I need 80 inches by, I don't actually remember how big she made the waistband. The other thing I still need to do is find enough lace for the skirt because I'm pretty sure that her skirt is very lacy at the bottom, like with a scalloped edge lace. And while I have options for that, I certainly don't think I have enough to line all of the tulle skirts. What I might do is just line 2 of them with some lace, or hem 2 of them with some lace, and then the other skirts I'll just hem with a normal bias tape just to finish it off, because I certainly do not have enough lace in my stash to even do 2 skirts, and it'll be a pain in the butt to find anywhere that sells enough lace that I like to do more than that. So we'll see how it goes. Luckily, my cutting mat has measurements printed right on it, and I could see them through the tulle. So I folded my fabric in half, lined it up, and slowly worked my way across. Don't worry, I pre-cut the length so I wasn't going too wild and cutting out way more than I needed. Then came the tedious part, adding frills to the bottom of the longest strips and gathering everything using my handy-dandy gathering foot. I sewed the longest strip to the smaller one, joined them at the back, and voila! A whole bunch of skirts. I kind of breezed through that, but I'll link the tutorial below because she does a way better job of explaining what the heck is going on. I have finally finished sewing together my tulle skirts, panels, things. It took forever, and they're wildly different sizes because I couldn't get the gathering foot to work like I wanted it to, so like every single panel is a different length, ranging from like 150 inches to like 250 inches. So we'll see how that goes together. Also, I only had enough of my trim to do 3 of the skirts out of the 6. But that's okay because I think mostly the 6 is for the volume. I don't need all 3 of them to have the frills at the bottom, hopefully. If not, I'll have to order more, which would be a pain in the butt. Also, I figured out that the reason that my camera was having such a hard time seeing that white fabric is because I had accidentally set it to overexpose everything by like 1.5. That's what I get for having a touchscreen that I don't know how it works. There's so much tulle here. Actually, combining the skirts into one big loop was quite the challenge. I used so many pins to keep everything from slipping, and I'm pretty sure there's still at least one spot where it's not sitting right. Alright, so I finally got all the tulle skirts attached to each other, They are quite voluminous, but I can't put it on yet because it's way too big. Hopefully it'll be as voluminous as it was in the original tutorial. It's not looking like it's gonna be though, so I might have to do a hoop skirt after all. But while I was in the middle of working on that, I caught a cold, which is why I'm struggling to speak a little bit because my lungs haven't quite recovered. But I figured while I'm here, I can show you the fabric that I got because it finally arrived. This is the fabric that I got for the Card Captor Sakura dress. It is not quite the color I was thinking. Let me get a little closer. I was hoping for a more salmon kind of color, salmon kind of color. It is kind of salmon, but it's got a little bit of neon kind of coloring to it. So it'll work. It's just not quite what I was hoping for. But I think it'll still work. I think it'll still be cute and it'll still look good with the reds and stuff. And that's it with my shirt. Not that it makes much of a difference because it's white. But I am a little disappointed with the color of the fabric. The actual texture of the fabric is real soft and nice feeling. So that's good. I'm okay with that. But the color isn't quite what I was hoping for. I was hoping for it to lean a little bit more red. But before finishing that, I needed a modesty layer under all that tulle. I cut a rectangle about 15 inches long by the fabric's width, sewed along the selvages to make a tube, and used a French seam for good measure. Even though it wasn't really necessary since the selvages don't fray, might as well keep the theme. Then I added a rolled hem while it was separate from the tulle and pinned it to the tulle using, again, all the pins. At this point, the skirt was getting so big my camera didn't even know what to focus on anymore. For the waistband, I got a little lazy and just folded the fabric over the seam allowance, sewing it down but leaving a small gap to thread elastic through. Then came some spray starch and a hairdryer. My brilliant plan to give the tulle more poof. I flipped the skirt upside down, sprayed, dried, and sadly, the tulle was too thin to hold its shape. So, floppy it is. But hey, that's the 2 underlayers done. Time to move on to the recognizable parts. The actual dress. I really didn't want to remake my mock-up just to redo the same alterations, but luckily I still had the mock-up from my blouse. All I had to do was cut the shape up a bit to match the original dress. A much lower neckline, a waist that actually hits at my natural waist, and just a little extra room around the armholes for the blouse sleeves to fit. Then it was time to cut everything out. You might notice in the footage that my scissors have a little piece sticking out of them. That's just a random magnet I found, but it happens to be the perfect width for a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If I keep it lined up with the pattern edge, it's like a magical little guide. The only problem is every now and again it keeps catching my pins. Sewing everything together went about the same as the blouse, keeping with the French seams because at this point we're committed. For the skirt, I usually use the Mood Circle Skirt Calculator because math, no thanks. But they don't actually have a double circle skirt option, which is what I wanted for that super magical girl volume, so math it is. To make a normal full circle skirt, you take your waist radius and measure that around a twice folded corner of your fabric. But for a double circle skirt, you have the radius so the 2 circles combined equal your waist measurement. Then you draw another circle that's your radius plus your desired skirt length. I went with 16 inches because I found the 15-inch tulle layer was just a bit too short. Once I had the math sorted out, it was just a matter of transferring those circles onto the fabric. And of course, I should have checked my camera angle because I definitely went out of frame at least twice. Classic me. I cut one of the circles as a whole piece and the other circle in 2 halves so I could add a zipper at the back. Then more French seaming because apparently I like to suffer. To join everything together except the back seam and attach it all to the bodice. Attaching the skirt to the bodice was a bit of a pain. The curves really didn't want to line up, and I'm pretty sure the skirt wasn't exactly the same width as the bodice. I ended up having to pick out several of the spots and then redo them to get it to lay as flat as possible, and I'm pretty sure there's still some wrinkles all around the wedge. Then it was back to the iron again. This fabric wrinkles so quickly. I can already tell it's going to be a pain to travel with, but at least it irons nicely. While I was at it, I took the chance to press up a rolled hem. The curve made it tricky, but I managed it with only a few weird puckers. I also wanted the skirt to hold its shape better, so I added a little horsehair braid while sewing down the hem. Ideally, I would have liked to cover the braid, but the last time I tried that, it made the hem pucker horribly. So this time I let it show slightly. It's fine. It adds to the character, right? So I finished the hem. And I have to say I'm a little concerned because this dress seems very short for me. This is the skirt now, and while I can wear it, it's long enough as it is right now. Once I put all the tulle and stuff underneath, it's gonna get a lot shorter. So it is a short dress in the anime, but she's also a little girl, and little girls with tulle skirts that are really short are kind of cute. But adult women with short skirts is not so much. So that's why I wanted to make the bloomers, which I'm not sure if I'm gonna have enough time for. So that's gonna be a bit of an issue, but I can always wear shorts underneath my dress. Just hopefully the dress isn't so short that you can see the shorts underneath. But right now I have finished the hem. Well, I've attached my horsehair braid to it, which is why it's got quite a loopy loop look to it, which looks very weird when it's flat on the hanger, but hopefully it looks better when it's actually in the right place. Now I'm just trying to decide where exactly I want to put the gold ribbon. I'm thinking if you put the gold ribbon kind of at the top of the horsehair braid, you still can only kind of see it. It would keep the horsehair braid in place so the horsehair braid wouldn't flip out, which is something I'm concerned about. But the problem with that is it seems like it would be a little low because the real placement, I think, would be closer to like here. But the horsehair braid is like 1 inch, and I want to say that the gold trim is probably 2.5 inches above the bottom. So I think I'll just have to just make sure it doesn't flip out. It seems to be okay for the most part. There's some places where it's a little iffy on whether or not it'll flip out. I might tack it down kind of where the seams are, or maybe a couple of other places, just to make sure it doesn't flip out. And then I can put my gold trim a little higher up. I did, in fact, decide that the gold ribbon should sit higher on the skirt. I'll just have to keep an eye on the hem so it doesn't flip out too often. To keep the ribbon in place, I stitched along both sides as close to the edge as possible. Hopefully it's not too noticeable. And yes, another rolled hem for the armholes. Then came the zipper. Unfortunately, when I bought it, I didn't measure, so it goes almost all the way down to the bottom of the dress. Oops! But at least it's easy to get in and out of. Whatever length was left over after the zipper, I just closed up with a final French seam. Alright, the dress is officially completed. I even put the zipper in the back, although it still needs another iron. One to get all these wrinkles out, although that'll probably be on the day of. I'll probably iron it before wearing it. It also needs another iron in the back so that the fabric will go away from the invisible zipper, and maybe I can close it, because right now I can't close it on my own. I did turn it to face the wrong way and was able to close it over the bust, so it should fit. It's just that it keeps getting stuck on the fabric as I'm trying to close it, and I can't do it from behind, and it's an awkward thing. So it fits, I'm pretty sure. I can't exactly test it, but I did everything that I could, and I'm pretty sure it fits. So I have the shirt practically done, the dress is done, the tulle skirt is practically done. I'd like it to have a little bit more volume, but that would require a hoop skirt. So that might be a do that at another time kind of thing. So what we're still looking for is the bows, the red bows that she wears for her collar. I need gloves, I need stockings, and most important, I need a beret. And then also I need, of course, the shoes and the wig, which are coming in the mail whenever they get here. Now we move on to the accessories, starting with the hat. Sakura's hat is definitely a beret, but it doesn't quite look like a standard beret, which actually makes it easier to make. I cut a large circle from my pink fashion fabric and another from a stiffer material. I used a black felt-like fabric for structure, but if you can, definitely go with something lighter. The black slightly darkened my final color, which changes it from the color of the dress. I also cut a straight strip for the band, slightly smaller than the circumference of the hat. That didn't work quite how I wanted, so you can totally skip that. Then I sewed the fashion and stiff layers together, wrapped my band around the edge, and left a small opening to insert some elastic. Cut just smaller than my head. So here's the hat right now. I think that it's too small. Like, the amount that's in the front here looks good, but that's because there's like nothing in the back. And also if I have it sat on my head a little better, it's... Actually, no, that's not bad. Huh, interesting. So it wasn't actually sitting like this earlier. It was actually a lot closer to my head and wasn't really working. Funnily enough, although this is a beret, it actually sticks up further in the front, which I think is how it looks in the picture. Yeah, I think it still needs to be a bit bigger. I think it's fine in the front here, but the width isn't quite there, and also this is not taking into account the amount of hair that's going to be added when I put the wig on, because the wig is going to have a little bit of volume, and if we look at the picture, there's a lot more there. So I think I'm gonna remake the hat. I think the way that I did it worked, but I'd also like to not see this elastic bit. It gives kind of shower cap vibes. So I'm going to try again, but this time instead of doing one strip that will be folded in half, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a curved bit that I can sew into the hat, and then the elastic can kind of disappear into the hat instead of giving this shower cap vibe. So I'll make it bigger. I think the radius this time I'm gonna go for a 10-inch radius instead of a 7.5-inch radius, if only because that sounds like a nice number. We'll see if it works. It might be too big. So I try it again. This time with a bigger circle, and the band was also cut in a circular shape to fit better. I hand sewed the band to the lining so neither it nor the stitches would show. Right, second attempt, it looks much better. It's still giving shower cap vibes, but I think when I put the bow on the back and with the whole outfit, it'll look more correct, because I think it is a good size for the hat, and it looks like it does in the picture. It's funny because it looks like a shower cap. But now I have a hat. I just need a bow for the hat. I cut large rectangles from both the fashion and lining fabric just like before, if only so it would be the same color as the hat, but sewed little triangle notches at the ends to give it that cute pointed ribbon shape. Then onto the hat it goes. Next up, the glove. If you saw my last video, you might recognize some of this footage. That's because I originally made this glove pattern for Sakura and reused it later for Hera. I cut all the pieces from the same fabric as the blouse. Probably not my best idea since the fabric frays like crazy, but it had the perfect, soft, luxurious look that I wanted, and it matched the blouse. I tried to film the hand sewing process, but of course I didn't keep track of my camera angle, so most of it ended up off screen or blocked by my hand. Classic me again. Then came more ribbons for both the gloves and the shoes. I'm getting ready to go out for lunch, so I figured I would do a fit check since I just finished the bulk of the sewing. The only thing I'm missing is the wing, which I don't technically need, but I really want. So this is the dress. I think it is adorable. I've got my hat here, and I'm gonna go out to lunch with this. I don't think I'm gonna wear the gloves, if only because food and white gloves probably don't go well together, but it's super cute and I definitely think it is real close to the original. I do have the wig, but I wasn't going to bother with the wig right now, and I'm sorry if you can hear the rumbling in the background. There's a storm going on, or at least threatening to go on. I don't have it zipped at the moment because I can get it zipped on my own, but it's a pain in the butt, so I'm gonna have the person who's coming to pick me up zip it for me. But yeah, so I figured going out for lunch is a good time to test the fit, see if there's anything I need to fix or change to make it wearable for long periods of time. I'm also gonna go, I actually have a Card Captor Sakura purse, and I'm gonna grab it. It's too light for this particular dress if I were to go with a totally Lolita fit, but it's Card Captor Sakura, so it matches at least the vibe. And also it's got the little keychain here. We're in the final countdown. With only a couple of days left until the con, yes, I procrastinated again, I still need to make the staff and the wings. For the staff, I started with an aluminum foil base. I saw on a Weta Workshop post that using the back of a spoon helps smooth the foil and shape it evenly, and it actually works really well. The wings, however, were another story. I knew I couldn't make them out of foil, so I cut out the general shape from cardboard and hot glued the pieces together. Since I couldn't use anything oven baked, I used some foam clay from my stash to sculpt the base of the staff. Alright, I hate foam clay. I do not like it at all, but it's really the only clay I have left at the moment because the air dry clay that I was going to use is dry. So I could either use that or I can use my really expensive epoxy sculpt, and I just don't know if I want to waste that. I will be going to the store later, so I'm thinking that I'm going to allow the base of the wand, let's see if I can grab it without damaging it, allow the base of the wand to dry as is. It is a bit rough. That's not surprising, it always is whenever I do a sculpt. I generally like to do the finishing touches when it's dry and just kind of carve into it, and I think that's what I'll do on this one as well. But I'm gonna wait for this to dry and then not work on the front with any sort of sculpt or anything until I have decided if I like the base or if I need to go to the store and get some actual air dry clay. So now this just has to sit and dry for a little bit. I don't know how long, maybe 24 hours? 24 to 48 hours is what it says here. So I'll let this dry until tomorrow, which is probably not the best idea because it's Sunday currently. Wednesday is the last day I have to work on this, so I still have to sculpt the front and then paint the whole thing. And I'm not sure if this wood is going to take the paint, so I'm a little concerned about that. And then also sculpting this, and everything's a little concerning. I mean, it's got a good shape and I'm really happy with the shape of it. It's just covering it in something, and I don't know. I hate so much foam clay. I might just go ahead and go to the store. I'm going out later anyway because my parents wanted to do a dinner. I might just go ahead and go get some air dry clay that I can use on the head and not worry and just let this dry, and if it looks horrible I will just remove it and do air dry clay down here. This is easier to fix than this is. So I'll put this off to the side to dry and then work on the only thing that I absolutely have to get done now is the plush wings. Technically I don't have to get them done. I could not make them, but I really like to. So I'm really close. It's just this prop. I should have started it yesterday. It's Sunday. I knew I should have started it on Saturday, but I didn't, and I'm regretting it now. So there's that. Then I went and got some air dry clay from Michael's to build up a rough sculpt for the head of the staff. It didn't need to be perfect since I plan to carve the details in later. While that was drying for its 24 hours, I tried to tackle the wings. My first idea was to make them like little pillows. I drew out the shape, cut it from the same blouse fabric, and quickly realized off camera that it would not work at all. So that plan was scrapped immediately, and I went back to the staff. So a storm just came through and I lost power. So I was going to work on my wand out in the garage, but I don't have light in the garage, so I have to work on it in here because I also don't have a place elsewise that I can work on it outside. And I can't open the garage door because the lights are off. And I can't exactly wait for it to come back on because I have no idea when it's going to come back on because I don't know why it turned off. But anyway, so a storm came through. I have no power. I still need to work on the wand. I still need to do some sewing stuff, but my sewing machine's not working because the power is out. And I can't find my Dremel, which doesn't matter because the Dremel needs to be plugged in and the power's out. So I'm working on what I can of the wand using this little nail Dremel that I got a long time ago because one of my cousins owned it, and I was messing around with trying to make dolls, and they're like, well, we have this Dremel, and this is literally the only tip that'll work on this type of clay. So I get to try to file down what I can of this wand with this Dremel inside. I have the windows open to try to give myself a little bit of airflow because it's also going to get real hot in here real soon because I live in the south. I live in the south and it's August, so I also will be wearing a mask just so you guys know. And if the cats try to get anywhere near me, I'm going to put them away. And immediately there's one. In the fading light of that evening, I did what carving I could because there was no way I was lighting a candle with all that dust flying around. Alright, so as you can see, the power is back and I was able to at least get the carving done. It's not the nicest thing. I don't really have enough time to really give it a good go. And the inside actually isn't dry yet, but I don't have enough time to wait for it to dry before doing the next step. So the inside looks horrible, but at least the outside looks okay. And then the bottom I actually can't file down. This is not taking the file, so I'm glad I didn't use it for the top, although the top is so much heavier than the bottom. So now what I need to do is I need to tape up my jewels and then put some primer on. The staff was finished off camera. Since I was running out of time, I gave it a few coats of Plasti Dip and then followed it with a coating of a pink spray paint that you can just get at Walmart. But that actually turned out to be the wrong thing to do because that kind of spray paint is finished, like it's got its overcoat already, which made it so much harder for me to add on paint on top. So when I wanted to do the gold and white details, it wasn't wanting to stick. And I also couldn't find any of my brushes, so I wound up hand painting it. It's fine. For the wings, I cut the shape I drew earlier from 4mm foam, plus an extra feather shape from the same foam to sandwich a wire between. That would have worked a lot better if I hadn't used rubber cement. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Use contact cement. They're not the same thing. I went over all the edges with hot glue to keep them together. Then I made that classic U-shaped wire insert that helps wings attach to clothing. It would have worked perfectly if I had used stronger wire. Pro tip, go to your local hardware store and get galvanized steel wire for your wings. If you get the ones at Michael's, it doesn't work. I've gotten so many different types of wire at Michael's and it never works and it always collapses. In the end, I just hot glued the wings directly onto the back of my dress. I'm really hoping I can get them off later without ruining anything because I would love to wear this dress outside of cosplay too. And finally, the wig. It just needed a little trim along the bangs. It was my first time ever cutting a wig though, so let's just say it's not perfect, but it works. And there you have it, my Card Captor Sakura cosplay. Honestly, this might be one of my favorite projects I've ever made. The props are definitely a little lackluster, but the dress itself, I'm so proud of it. The fit and the finish and the details, it's some of the best sewing I've ever done. Of course, if I ever remade this costume, there are a few things I'd fix. I'd make sturdier props, or just better props in general, use a stiffer tool for more skirt volume, pick a better material to make the gloves, and make sure the glove bows are bigger. I realized later that they're actually pretty big, whereas I made them a little small. I'd also love to make the stockings myself next time, but honestly, those are tiny details, barely noticeable from afar. So overall, I'm really happy with it. And with that, the dress is complete. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the magical little sewing adventure. I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Please tell me you actually caught that. You caught the whole thing! And it is half an hour. Wow, okay.
Stop eating the plastic. It's not good for you.